Welcome to What Talk, where we answer your burning questions. Hello and welcome to my channel, and no, I made up that name literally on the spot as recording, and I'm sure somebody has come up with that before, so I'm not planning on stealing your name if you have a show on YouTube or somewhere or a podcast called What Talk, but I am here to do a dedicated Wheel of Time video, which is going to be concerning the Eye of the World, not the book itself, but more specifically the actual eye that we get to at the end of the book. Now, this is something I really wanted to talk about because I know I have thought so much about this over the years. I have agonized over different parts, different interpretations, and really dug into a lot with it because it's left a little bit vague in parts on what the eye is and really what the purpose of it was. It's done intentionally, but I've always been the person, especially with this series, I like to dig in more and find out as much as I can. I know a lot of first-time readers especially, and even people who've read it multiple times, have a lot of questions often or are not quite sure what happened. And so specifically, I know a couple that were reading for the first time in the Discord. I requested a video like this, and it's something I've wanted to talk about for a long time. So with no further ado, let's get into it. Now, I will note, so there's a little more ado, that for the vast majority of this video, it will be spoiler-filled for only Book 1 of the Wheel of Time, The Eye of the World. There will be a brief part, which will be marked with the timestamp chapter things, which I'll have going for the different sections I'm going to talk about as well. Will be marked. Do not, under any circumstances, watch that part if you have not finished the entire series, because I'm going to be talking about a couple of events that happened much later in the series. One of them kind of in the middle, one of them very much toward the end, so don't watch it unless you've read the entire series. I really don't want to spoil this for anybody, so please listen to that, check the timestamps. I will note it again when we're getting to that part, but for the vast majority of this video, I will only be speculating on things that are about Book 1. So, let's jump in with what happened at the Eye of the World. So we've got to talk about first, well, what is the eye? So in the book, we learned that the eye is basically like the liquid, in a way, essence of Sidene. Man, it's hard for me to pronounce that the correct way, too. That's another one I've said wrong in my head for many years. But the liquid, basically, essence of Sidene, which was distilled and put here by both male and female channelers shortly after the breaking of the world, or kind of like as it was starting, for a purpose. Nobody really knows why it was done or how it was done, but both male and female channelers worked together to put pure Sidene into this pool, basically shaped like an eye, and knowing they would die in the process, and that they did. They sent the Green Man to basically watch over and protect this, and that's what he ended up doing. So it's mentioned as well that no one living knows, once again, how it was created or why it was created, but it's deemed to be very important, and thought that it could be a very powerful force that could be used for good or for evil. So we kind of are stuck where we're not really given a whole lot of information about the eye, and the bigger question is really more so, well, what's it for? And that's the question I'm mostly going to be trying to answer. So what do we know that happened with the eye? So we know the things that I just talked about. We know our party gets there. Rand ends up channeling it in order to fight and defeat Agenor and defeat Balsamon as it's going on, with that kind of mystical battle that's going on, where it's not quite just a physical battle, it's more almost like a mental battle, or a battle of forces or avatars, versus just specifically Rand fighting anybody individually. That's displayed with the cords, where we see that Agenor at first has a cord that she's trying to pull the power from the eye and channel it, and then Rand ends up taking over. And Balsamon has the cord of black, which is inferred is going to be going to from the Dark One, drawing that power that Rand cuts off to defeat him, essentially. So it's more like we have the Avatar of Light and the Avatar of Dark fighting, in a way. It's kind of that deeper battle that's going on, and the Sidene is channeled, and we have Rand trying to use it to basically end the war against the Dark One, and being convinced that he has slain the Dark One by doing this. we do have the part where, and I'm not going to get in crazy more to this because this is starting to get less directly related, but part of what's important to think about here is we have the voice of presumably the creator who says he will not partake and he will not join in this, and that only the chosen one can do what needs to be done, and then says multiple times, it is not here. It is not here. So we can see that while Rand is trying to end it and have this be done, that maybe there's more to come later, and this isn't going to be the last battle after all. So we know that, and then we also know that with underneath, like hidden in the bottom of the eye, is the Horn of Valir and the Dragon Banner, both items of great importance. The Horn of Valir, of course, which can be used to call lost heroes, basically, in order to fight, and it's the grave is no bar to my call, mentioned multiple times throughout the book about the hunt for the horn and kind of stories about it as well. So very, very important things. So, well, what is the purpose of the eye? Was it meant to be channeled, to use and strike against the Dark One? Was it just meant to protect the horn and the Dragon Banner? Was it something more? Well, that's where it's left pretty vague. And Moiraine even says, right toward the end, she says, I wonder if its purpose was what we used it for, or if it was just to protect these items. And so it doesn't say. And I'm going to tell you, too, because I'm a huge Wheel of Time nerd, I have the Wheel of Time Companion, the encyclopedia. Do you want to know what this says about the Eye of the World? I will quote, "The Eye of the World, a concentrated pool of pure Sidene created by Aes Sedai, using both Sidene and Sidar during the breaking. Many Aes Sedai died in its making. It was ultimately located in the Blight and guarded by the Green Man. It was destroyed when it fulfilled its purpose related to the Dragon Reborn." That is the most infuriating thing ever, because I remember when I got this, that was one of the first things I looked up among, like, there were several things just to see what more was in there, just to see, like, I wonder if I'll have more information and kind of confirm something either way. And no, it just says it was destroyed after it fulfilled its purpose, which just figures, because whenever Jordan was asked about this, he always had a tendency to just basically say it fulfilled its purpose, it did what it was there for, not giving a ton of information, and so that's where kind of the debates really come in here. So what really is it for? Now, I do think in some cases the simplest explanation is probably the most accurate. It was specifically hiding the Horn of Valir and the Dragon Banner, two items that were going to be very important when the last battle was drawing near. The idea here probably being then that once the dragon returns, it would be the Dragon Reborn who would be able to channel this power and then be able to get those items which would be needed as things go along. So that generally seems to make sense as something that could be done. We've heard about the dragon and the idea of him being reborn. We knew that one of the boys was going to be this person the Dark One was looking for, and we have at the very end, the last line, Moiraine confirming the dragon is reborn, saying Rand is the Dragon Reborn. So maybe that's all that it is, but there are a couple of other things that we could talk about there, because that never really sat well with me. And so that's why it's something that I dug in so much. I'm like, yeah, like, I get that, and it does make sense, but I feel like there's got to be something more there. And so I'm happy to tell you there are some more things. Now, this is getting to the point where it's more speculation or me just talking about other things, where what I've already told you is probably the answer, quote-unquote. But a few more things that I want to talk about here. So one thing that I think is an important note, and that it might also have done, is so we know that, I mean, it was hiding those things, presumably waiting for the Dragon Reborn to use it. Now, I've also heard people say, like, why didn't one of the Forsaken come before to try to use the power? And well, it was protected by the Green Man, and the Green Man, like, his little pocket, even though it's in the Blight, it specifically said that you can only be found there basically if you have true intentions and have a need and aren't just seeking glory. So that kind of explains why they wouldn't have been able to find it. Specifically, Balthamel and Agenor find it because of Mat's dagger, and they can sense that, so they're able to find it based on that. And it's talked about as well, specifically, that the Dark One wants to blind the Eye of the World, and those kinds of things, which are, the stories are specifically told which there's a lot of foreshadowing and a couple of things that are mentioned there as well that I won't get into. But that's all happened, and then basically during the showdown with Balsamon, he's saying that he led Rand to go there. So why would he want Rand to go to the Eye of the World if it's just something that he needed to do to get the horn and the dragon banner for himself? Like, that doesn't really make sense. Well, and it could be partially the fact that once they were there, the hope is that they'd be able to find Rand. But you know, there's already that link in the dreams, so there's that kind of look. And so, as far as blinding the Eye of the World, somehow tainting it, that's where it's always led me to the idea that maybe there was some way to use that power. Now, Moraine does make a comment throughout the book that that power could potentially be used to free the Dark One. I don't really agree with that because there's not really any good way for that to work. Also, it's just one comment that she makes, and it's also made very clear that most of what she's saying is also speculation. So that's why I feel free to speculate as well. So maybe what were the other purposes for it? I think, once again, largely probably to find who specifically was the Dragon Reborn, because the Dark One is gung-ho on getting the Dragon Reborn to turn to the dark, and having trouble finding him. So despite the fact that they're somewhat protected by the Green Man, that protection is going away as soon as the eye is used and its purpose is fulfilled. So that leaves Rand pretty well open in the Blight, and so it still could be something like that, with where he wanted to get him to go into his center of power, basically, for it. So that's definitely something there. We also, though, have a lot in the first book where we talk about how if you don't have somebody to train you as a channeler, and you're somebody who's born with the spark and is going to channel no matter what, it can be very dangerous. This is specifically mentioned that it could happen to Egwene. It's mentioned that it happened to Nynaeve, and she got over it, basically. But we see this with Rand, too, earlier in the book, before it's confirmed he's channeling, after he is channeled, where he gets sick and is really struggling there. So with that happening, and with, of course, nobody really to teach him, something, once again, this is just a theory, I think there's a chance, basically, that using that Saidin, channeling that much power, where he was pulling it more from a source, and it's mentioned too, even Balsamon says you can't use that, it'll destroy you, it's too much, or it should destroy you. Obviously, he seems to be a pretty powerful channeler, able to use that much, but also maybe it's different somehow because of the fact that it's already there. He's not pulling the power all into himself, he's using an existing power, so to speak, that's different from just pulling it from the true source. So this is all, once again, speculation, so feel free to disagree as well. But that's the way that I look at it, is maybe this is how he's able to potentially not go through all of the trouble and be able to channel because of the fact that he went through this, and that's maybe a way past that. Now, I don't know, that's definitely some speculation, but that's something that I wonder about there. So now I'm going to talk about a couple of other purposes, so to speak, for the Eye that definitely are spoilers for the rest of the series. So, once again, check the chapter timestamp thing. Skip past this if you've not read the entire series. I mean it. Okay? We're getting into the spoilers now. So, a couple of other things I want to note here that talk to foreshadowing in a large way is, A, the first thing is the fact that Saidin can be cleansed. This was after. The Eye of the World was built after the Dark One had tainted Saidin in the counterstroke after the 100 Companions went. So this was after that, but there was a group of powerful Aes Sedai who were still able to get a clean amount of it and store it there. And so the fact that that's possible likely is where we get later, where with Rand believing that he can actually cleanse it. Now, I don't believe it's ever specifically mentioned that that's where he got the idea from, but it does kind of still foreshadow the idea that maybe there is a way that it can be cleansed. It's also mentioned that a lot of people die doing it, so you know it's going to be dangerous and not necessarily something that can be duplicated, but as you know, when you get later in, of course, it is later done. So I think there's that. Also, the battle in general, which is kind of the weird way it happens, foreshadows a lot with the actual last battle, where it is more that battle of wills on an ethereal plane versus just actually the fighting, though there's lots of that as well. So I think those are other things that the scenes there actually do. So getting back to only spoilers for the first book now, The last thing I'll mention here, and like I said, a lot of this is me speculating on purposes, just kind of discussing. It's something I've thought a lot about. You do have to take with a grain of salt in general. And the final thing I'll mention is this is the first book in a very long series, and it does have a couple of inconsistencies. There are a few small things that happen or are talked about that are not really the same going forward once we really dig in. So it's also just possible that the Eye of the World was designed as a possible end if this was only like one book. There's, of course, more brought up, but the first 3 books of the series have endings that, with very few tweaks, feel almost like they could be it. So it's possible to keep in mind that, or that maybe it's just, it was going to be referenced later on and then just never was. It could be something as small as that, but it's a heck of a lot of fun to talk about and theorize on. So I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts there with it as well. So this is always, like I said, fun to talk about. Let me know in the comments if this helped clear things up, if you have additional questions about this topic, or if there are any other topics as we go through this read-along that you would like me to discuss. Like I said, I do want to do some more of these videos if there's interest, and I might do them even if there's not, because it's fun for me to do them. But let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the things that I said here. And also if you've got other questions or discussion topics. And of course, you can always check out the link in the description for the Wizardly Duo Discord as well, if you want to discuss there. We do have channels that are open for the buddy read for each book. General channels as well, too. If you've read more and just want to chat spoilers there, we can also do that. Always happy to talk Wheel of Time with anyone. It's just a series that, like I said, I love a lot, and so I'm happy to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.